Highland Weekend, and thus we are talking all things Celtic in today's show and in tomorrow's show.
And this afternoon we are talking about my favourite place on this green earth, the glorious Emerald Isle of Ireland. That will be our topic this afternoon.
This afternoon, indeed. So, I am Thomas Cromwell, Secretary of State, Chancellor of the Exchequer, very important man, but of course you knew that. To my left,
Lady Margaret Lee, Lady Lee, and to his right,
I am Pernille Goya. I am the Sheriff of Roskilde, which is in Denmark. Thank you. And to my right,
Old Johnny Dew, storyteller, vagabond bard, and Scottish by birth, Irish at heart.
and being as you are so knowledgeable this day, I believe that Johnny will be carrying the preponderance of the conversation.
Can I see my young apprentice Moira is in the background over there? I might bring her up in a wee bit.
Oh, there we are, indeed.
lovely.
As a representative of the Emerald Isle.
Aye, indeed, she was born Irish.
No, you do not have to sit upon the ground. You can sit upon a bench.
Really, we mind it not.
or if you would like, you can sit upon the ground up here.
Yes?
Okay.
Look at that. Look how she runs. There you go.
Oh look,
Yeah.
we have a visual aid.
So,
Very well.
let's start off talking about Ireland's ancient past. The island of Ireland has been inhabited for many thousands of years. Probably all the way back to at least this year, if not slightly after. At least thousands and thousands of years. There have been things found in Ireland that are 30, 40,000 years old. That are left. There are ancient ruins there and burials that predate the coming of my people by many, many centuries. But it has been inhabited for a very long time. There was a time when Ireland was a great and mighty nation of many kings ruled by a high king, who ruled from the great hill, the royal hill of Tara, and who kept law and order throughout the island. The ancient Greyhound law of Ireland. That time has come and sadly gone. Now, what you should know is that the island has an ancient history. Its people have been there a very long time. And
I do beg your pardon. How long back exactly these civilizations go, we are not entirely sure, but the standing stones that they left behind as their markers date back thousands and thousands of years.
And my people, the Celts, have been there for at least a couple of thousand years. And it's an ancient land. You feel, much as with England, but perhaps even more so, you feel the weight of the centuries there. But rather than being oppressive, it is liberating. It is like a stage that the most famous people you can imagine have all trod across in their time. And now it is your turn. That's the kind of place it is. Now, let's give you the English party line and what is going on in Ireland.
What's really happening?
The English claim Ireland as a dominion. They have dominated part of the island since the 13th century.
That part is called the Pale.
Aye. And it's centred around Dublin.
And Drogheda. Those are the two major cities.
My dear Lady Norfolk, I believe you're here for something.
I am.
Could you hold that for a moment?
It seems that all Johnny do is very good. I am not.
Oh,
There you are.
Oh, my goodness, you must have told a good story for Lady Norfolk there.
Yes, it was! Gramercy, you my lady.
Just this morning we were telling how important and how high regard bards were in Ireland and also a little bit in England. And you see evidence of that this day.
Aye, indeed. So, the English party line. Ireland is theoretically ruled from Dublin. Dublin was founded many centuries ago. Can anyone tell me by whom? It's very interesting. Does anyone know? The Vikings, the Norse founded Dublin.
They had to go all the way past England to get to it.
Because they raided the Irish coast quite often.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have been joined by...
Oh, Latimer Fairfield, captain of the privateer vessel Seahawk, and Baron of Sassuolo.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, back in Dublin.
Aye. In fact, Iceland was founded by a bunch of Vikings and some Irish women. They got in more trouble than they expected, running off with a bunch of Irish girls and founding a country. But Dublin is where the Pale extends from. This is the area of English control in Ireland. And these are native Irish people who speak the native Irish language of Welga or Irish Gaelic. And
Which is unintelligible.
to some. To many, it's the most mellifluous, beautiful language on earth.
It is lovely to listen to.
Aye. But the English rule that area. The people are Irish, but the English lords rule. The Lord Mayor of Dublin is always English. The Archbishop of Dublin, also always English. And they rule that area. But it's a rather small area in the central eastern coast of Ireland. Right in the middle, on the east coast where Dublin is located.
And just outside that, there are lands held by very, very powerful Irish lords,
Right.
and in some case also English lords and ladies. In fact, I wish you were here today. The Countess Kildare,
My patroness. Aye.
indeed, she comes from a very, very powerful family, the Fitzgeralds, and so they hold sway just outside of the Pale, and also another branch, a cadet branch, holds Southern Ireland as
Aye.
well.
They are the most powerful family in Ireland, Fitzgeralds. They are what are called Anglo-Irish families. They were originally English, but they've gone native. And they hold allegiance to England more or less. But in reality, they sort of rule their lands in their own way. The Fitzgeralds, the Butlers, and the Boleyns also have a tie to Ireland as well. Thomas Boleyn, the Earl of Wiltshire, who is the father of Anne Boleyn, is also the Earl of Ormond, which is an Irish title as well. They have a tie of kinship to the Butlers. The Anglo-Irish lords are they have sort of a foot in both worlds. They're powerful, they have ties to England, they have ties to Ireland as well. The Earl and Countess of Kildare, whom he did mention, are especially important. Gerald Fitzgerald, the Earl of Kildare, is the most powerful man in Ireland. He is basically Henry VIII's representative in the island.
A very, very loyal man, and we're very fond of him.
But he is also an Irish super patriot as well. And this will
Which causes
eventually
problems sometimes.
this will eventually cause some problems. But she was born English but has gone native. She's from the Grey family originally. And has become a true Irish woman. They rule over County Kildare. Kildare comes from Kildara, the Irish, which means the Church of the Oak. An ancient name
Sounds witchy to me.
from an ancient
Sounds
time.
very old.
The Druids were once the priests of those islands long ago, and it harkens to that time. Ah, well, nothing to worry about. No long, good thing. Not one here at all. And
Why am I not reassured?
Maybe because we're casting conspiratorial glances.
we know nothing at all, nothing at all.
Move along.
So, we've got the Pale, centered around Dublin, which is English. We've got the Anglo-Irish Lord. The bulk of the Ireland, however, is ruled by the native Irish clans. The O'Malleys, the O'Farrells, and various other clans. Do we have a question?
You keep mentioning the Pale. What is that?
The Pale is that area that extends from Dublin by a couple of days' ride in each direction. That is under complete English influence. That's what we're talking about.
So that is the part that we control directly without much issue.
It is the Irish version of Calais.
Aye, in Calais in France, which is an English possession, there's also a place called there called the Pale as well. It's
So
the same thing.
Yes, it's the part that we own and we control.
So beyond the Pale, the phrase that you may have heard,
Exactly.
a wild country where no civilized person would dare go.
Because it's got Irish.
Well,
Irish?
those who are faint of heart would not go there, but those who are bold of spirit will realize when traveling through such lands that they are the most beautiful place that God has created on this
This is
earth.
why I stay on the East Coast.
That's because your wife is on the list.
Agreement.
These lands are controlled by the native Irish clans, like I said, the O'Farrells, the Flahertys, the O'Malleys, various others. The southwest, the central part of Ireland, and the north and northwest. This is an area called the Gaeltacht, which means the Gaelic-speaking area of Ireland. Now, It is spoken throughout the islands, but these are places where it is exclusively spoken. If you only speak English, you will have trouble in these areas because they do not speak that tongue. They speak a far older one.
And they are not particularly friendly.
Oh, you have to know how to English.
Well, if you are an visiting English nobleman.
Well, if you're a charming visiting Scottish bard, they think you're delightful.
I found in my travels, if you throw enough coin, everyone will look great.
It's true.
The Irish are very different on a very deep level from English in many ways. And one of those ways, the good English folk like building towns and cities. It is what they do. The Irish have never been very much for this. Small villages, small towns, but even more commonly, you have groups of homesteads, just a very small...
Not even a village.
Aye, not even a village, just some group, some local people who are related to each other in the same clan that are living in small homesteads. And it's a very rural island because that is the way of the Irish people.
And they are very self-sufficient people. They look after themselves.
Very resourceful.
They grow what they need. They trade amongst themselves and with neighboring clans. But there is no great need for cities in the respect that we understand them as trade centres and so forth. It's much more decentralised in Ireland, which makes it rather difficult to control. Because normally, if you control a city, you control the area around it. Not the case.
There is a very old saying in Ireland that when God has given you paradise, why need to place brick or mortar upon it? And it is a wild place. But in Ireland, by the way, there were never any Romans, ever. And so there are no Roman roads, which means that unlike in England, most places that are wild, there are no roads. You have to know where you're going. You have to navigate the ways that you're traveling.
And there was also not the gentling and civilization that the Romans brought. At a cost, admittedly.
At the cost of freedom.
Well, some would say that. But so there is not, and the Romans were very big on building cities,
They were.
as well as roads, and the roads would connect the cities. Since they were not there, that is yet another reason for this decentralization.
There are parts of Britain that fell under Roman rule. Almost all of what is now England, parts of what is now Wales. But the north of Wales, Scotland, where I come from, and Ireland were never Roman possessions.
Stopped at Hadrian's Wall, pretty much.
And as we said this morning, we have a completely separate literary tradition in Gaelic, which is the Scots Gaelic language, or Gaeilge, which is the Irish Gaelic language, and also in Welsh. The Mabinogion is a very famous collection of myths and legends from Wales. But it's like a completely different way of looking at literature, culture, and art. We are a very cultured people, or the lot of us are, and have been for our entire history. But it's just a different way of going about things. Ireland, however, is prone to strife and to rebellion.
Partly because of this clan-centric approach.
That's one of the reasons.
And partly because there is so much chaos within it, there's no structure.
There is structure, you just have to look at it.
And when the High King ruled, there was order imposed and allegiance given.
Ireland was the first nation in these isles to have a legal system of its own. And in those times there was peace. There are two destabilizing factors. One of them is the fractious nature of the clans.
Much like the Scots.
As with all Celts, we tend to not get along with each other more than with anyone else. The second is the English influence in Ireland, which is also destabilizing. One of the titles of their king is Lord of Ireland. But in reality, only part of the island is under English. And there are rebellions on a regular basis. About every 15 or 20 years, you can almost set a very long plot by it. There's a uprising in Ireland, and they try to throw off English shackles and English punishments.
And must be brought down again.
Okay, what are you doing tomorrow? I'm not sure. I'm tired of these shackles.
But this is a very difficult position for them both, because if you were to glance forward in history, you will know that English never fully dominate Ireland, ever. And the Irish never quite get rid of English influence either.
They try.
So it's a bit of a stalemate at times.
It's an uneasy alliance at the best of times, really, and it's outright warfare at other times.
Indeed. Do not call an Irishman English, that would be fatal. Or vice versa. Do not call him Scottish either, because that's also a separate thing.
Johnny, if I may, this morning we talked about the oral tradition and story and song, and I just want to, for those of you who weren't there this morning, Ireland knows its own history.
It does indeed.
People like Johnny will wander Ireland where they are treated very, very well, and will tell the old stories. And so that is a good thing because they know their history, but also old quarrels are brought back up long after they have been solved.
Time after time.
There's a story about everything in Ireland. And so the culture is they are very much aware of their past histories, past slights, past heroes, and so it's very, 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 very deep. Their knowledge is very, very deep, but it's also very, very fractious.
It's a very proud people too.
They are extremely proud.
Because there are heroes in Irish myth and legend like Cuchulainn and Finn McCool who are easily the match for King Arthur and all of the greatest of the English knights. And they are! I would love to see them fight because these are great epic heroes just as you have. Robin Hood, King Arthur, everyone has them.
They do. I just merely take offense
with no offense.
No, it's all right.
But
you beg your pardon, Johnny, please.
so it's quite a different place if you're used to a very urban country. If you come from the low country, if you come from Denmark, which is quite urban as well, or from southern England, it's a very different place, and it seems very wild and forlorn and empty.
Much like the north here in England, it's completely different from the south. Those of you who are born in London come up to here to Scarborough, you think it's a crazy town.
And I do want to reinforce what Johnny just said. It is empty. To your eyes, Ireland, most of Ireland is barren. It's uninhabited. There are people there, but they are scattered very far and wide.
And that is exactly how they like it. Because these are quiet, empty lands. These are quiet, empty lands of peace and of beauty. The Irish also very much believe that there are many forces at work in this world that cannot normally be seen by humans, and that they must have a place as well. The good folk, whom you may know as the fairies, are not in the lore of Ireland, these sweet little winged things. They are forces of nature, and they are to be respected and to be feared. Because they are capricious and mischievous, they can also be kind. They can be, it is as the mood suits them.
But one does never want to antagonize one of the fair folk.
And it is often called Pichot. It's a tradition in Ireland that certain trees are not to be harmed because they are sacred. Any tree with thorns on it, if you were to cut it down, can lead to a terrible fate, like what happened to poor Seamus.
And while I am not one for mysticism, I do make a bunch of stories. Tell the story of Seamus.
The short version. Seamus O'Riordan was a 19-year-old Irish lad who was travelling with him. Outside the town of Kilcullen in County Kildare, he met the Lord Mayor's daughter there and fell in love with her or lust or something like it. He was always after the lasses. And he did everything to beg for her favours, but she would have nothing of it. Finally, she grew so tired of hearing him caterwaul that she said, go outside the town, there is on the hill outside of Kilcullen, there is a ring of 9 blackthorn trees which grow in a ring. Cut one of those into a walking stick for me and then I might have words with you. He was a fool because everyone in Ireland knows that they are sacred to the good. And I tried to stop him, but he knocked me over. He took an axe up to the hill, cut down one of the trees. The Lunantashi, who are the protectors of blackthorn trees, white, pale, and very emaciated, appeared, hissing and growling, and a lady of the She, of the good folk, appeared, and basically said, you wanted a walking stick, Seamus O'Riordan. Very well, you shall be. He was changed into this form. That is the wrath of the good folk. And many may laugh, but when they are in the woods, it is dark. I do not think they should be laughing then, because they will know it is there.
I am not one for mysticism. I'm a practical man, a modern man.
Right.
But I have had a chance to visit Ireland briefly, and it is a place of great mystery. Of this I will admit. It is wild, it is green,
It is very green.
and everything appears ancient. And the trees do indeed seem to have intelligence.
You feel like you're walking in the footsteps of great heroes sometimes.
And being watched every step of the way.
It was their realm before it ever belonged to man.
So there's a mystical place that this permeated the culture.
There is a very famous Irish epic poem, it's very long, called the Labor Gabala Erin, which is called, it translates in English as the Book of Invasions. And it is the study of 5 different peoples who took Ireland captive and made it their own. And only one of those races was human. The first 4 were not. And it is a study of that struggle between the Fomorians who came from the sea and are wicked and dark, the Tuatha Dé Danann, the great gods of Ireland who came and took the isles from them, and eventually the human men who came and wrested the isle from the gods themselves and drove them beneath the ground.
It's a story of constant struggle.
It is. And the isle has always had that quality of struggle. It can be a very peaceful place, but it can be a very wild one.
That
About 5.
we did.
Moira, my apprentice, let's see if you've been paying attention.
Oh.
You were born and raised there, as were you. Tell us, for these good people who've never been to the Emerald Isle, tell us the one thing that they must know above all other things, or the one place they must go.
Shameless answer here. I am a Cork girl. So that means I love Cork City above all other things. Again, not a city, it's a slowly growing population. It was supposedly founded by St. Finbar.
Aye.
That being said, if you ever get the chance, go to Killarney. Because that is where you feel that presence.
I know
the
exactly.
strongest.
Learning, that's how it says.
Can
For
you
me,
spell that?
No standardised spelling, we said that this morning.
Spell it however you like.
For me, it's always been County Kildare and County Meath, because they are the ancient royal seat of Ireland. But aye, good advice, Morgan. Well done, lass. So, in our time, just to recap, Ireland is theoretically under the control of the English, but in reality is mostly under its own control, more or less.
And that control is slipping.
It is, sadly, but Ireland also is a very interesting country in regards to religion. Because on the one hand, it is a very Catholic land. The patron saint, St. Bridget of Kildare or St. Bridget of Ireland, St. Patrick, of course, who is the actual huge patron saint, and St. Columba as well. But on the other hand, there's an ancient tradition that goes back long before Christianity in Ireland. If you look at St. Bridget and you look too closely at her, you might see the goddess Bridget, who was there before her, one of the Tuatha Dé Danann, with the same name. It's such a thin veneer often between that which was and that which is now. This cross is the cross of both the saint and the goddess. Interestingly enough. Saint currently, she knew which
Saint.
way the wind was blowing.
But there is this deep spirituality in all Irish.
Aye.
And it's a spirituality with a duality to it. The very, very modern Orthodox Christian church and these folk beliefs with which they have been inculcated since childhood.
Go back thousands of years.
Indeed, and one might think that these would live not comfortably with each other, in opposition, but in sooth, there is a great amount of acceptance for both.
It's much the same as it is in England.
It is.
I think in Northern Ireland, they have actually managed to meld the two together so that they are more in concert with one another. And it's just amazing how they have done so.
Many, many hundreds of years ago, there was a church that rose in Ireland that was Christian, but influenced by the old ways, and it was called the Celtic Church. And it was quite an interesting philosophy, but unfortunately it was squashed by Rome, because the Vatican thought it to be heresy. But it was a blend of those two strands that run through Ireland, the pagan and the Christian, which are still both there very strongly in our day.
Yeah.
We have about 2.
Do we have any questions? Hey.
Really quickly, could you explain the difference between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland?
In our time, it's the same, actually. All of that has not happened yet.
In this time period in which we live, that is not the situation. There is the Pale, which is sort of equivalent to Northern Ireland.
Because it's under English control.
Because it's under English control. And then there's the rest of Ireland, which is equivalent to Ayr in Northern.
It's a good point, though, in that there is one point on the far northeastern Irish coast, but it's about 12 miles from Scotland. They're that close. And so there is a lot of flow of trade and culture between the two. Our two cultures are very similar in many ways. And in fact, the Scots, pretty much all of the Scots that you will see today are descendants of the Scotty tribe, and we came from Ireland, and we came to Scotland and defeated or inbred with the native Picts, who are another Celtic people.
But my lady, if you'd like to stay afterwards, I would be happy to answer that question.
Unfortunately, we are out of time. We could ramble on for a while.
But ladies and gentlemen, we are so happy to have returned to share stage with Donald Heideley and his glass harmonium.
Indeed.
And he is back here.
So definitely go
If you
listen
feel
to
free,
him.
please stay and listen to
Please
him.
stay, it's
It
beautiful.
is very lovely.
And on the morrow, our shows will be in the morning at 11:30, the Celtic Spirit, an exploration of what it is to be a Celt. And in the afternoon, it's a treat, the Haunted Isles. All things spooky about England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales.
Good God, there's a lot of
There's a lot. So come and see us there.